think it's fair to say you're extremely well known around the world in the safety field. You have a long history of research publications, your practical work, your consulting work, engaging with industry, and you have a book on safety culture, at least one book that I'm aware of that I've read, or two books. Your book on safety culture was one of the first I read when I started safety. Your work, in fact, was some of the first I was exposed to in safety. So before we start, I think it'd be really cool if you can give an overview of who you are and what you do.
Oh, I'm eclectic. So I'm Dom. I do safety. I try and do it very well. I don't know. I left school when I was 13, left home the same day. Didn't go back to college and night school till I was 29, I think it was. I was scaffolding the M25 around London at the time. So anyway, I went to night school and thought, oh, I like this, and just kind of liked it and got on with it, and then ended up doing what I'm doing now. So it's been fun. It's a bit of a journey, but fun.
And you're a scaffy, you're a psychologist, you've been consulting for quite a few decades. You're involved in, you even have some part of your consultancy, or you collect a whole lot of data on incidents and the behavioural data too, don't you?
Well, okay. So from the consultancy, so put it into context, I ended up as a scaffolder putting in for a PhD to try and improve construction safety. So that was how I got into safety academically, if you like, because I'd gone from night school and gone through a bachelor's and a master's. And that's all psychology. All my degrees are in industrial organizational psychology. So I got to do that on the construction sites. And it was a way of melding my construction background with PhD and the academic safety stuff. But then when we came out of that, I realized, wow, this stuff really, really, really works. I've never suddenly, for going from nobody and nothing to be able to puppeteer thousands of people doing what you want them to do, it's quite an amazing feeling, you know. And then when you see people aren't getting hurt as well, it's like, wow. And the lads are coming up to you saying, good job, Dom. And it's like, really? And these are guys who've just done like 7 years for armed robbery and so on, you know.
Yep.
These are the real people in the world, you know. So it was a lot of fun. But from there, we went into consultancy, and then software started coming about. So I mean, I'm showing my age now because we were on Windows, I don't know, -1, let alone 1. And then we started doing software stuff. So to collect the data from the observations, it was very time consuming to do it by hand, which is what we would do every single week for every client and so on and so forth. So we need help. You know, you start using Excel spreadsheets and so on. So we developed a program to be able to capture the observation data, and the guys can do it themselves. They can enter it, they can do it. It would automatically compute their scores, their safe, unsafes or whatever, give them all the information they needed. We just said, look, we want a template, something the guys can discuss once a week. So, yeah, we ended up over the 30 years, millions of records of safe behaviour and unsafe behaviour, plus comments, plus corrective actions, and plus. So it gave you good insights into what really goes on, not what the theory says and not what the guys might tell you in the canteen or something, but what really goes on, and you can interrogate all of it. So, yeah, right, I've been lucky in that sense.
All right, so let's kick off. So I've been asking this question first for everyone, but what is safety?
Okay. Safety is concerned with eliminating all of those threats that are likely to leave you being killed or hurt or whatever. So it's prevention of harm in a nutshell. I don't subscribe to all the different ways of looking at this, that and the other. I'm old fashioned. The law says you've got to do this to prevent people being hurt. When I was on the tools, I saw people go down. I saw them die. I've been myself when I was in the north of Ireland as a soldier. I had my arm pulled into a cement mixer and nearly ripped off. So I've been there, done it, felt it. So for me, prevention of harm. That's it. Pure and simple.
All right. Nice and simple. I like that. This next question came from, I'll call it the audience, but someone was very keen to understand, how did your background as a scaffy shape, I guess, your safety thinking and practice?
It's a good question. I would go back to my career before that, which was when I was in the Royal Engineers in the British Army. So there, and I joined when I was 17. So that taught you, I was wild. I'd been living on the streets and so on. So the army gives you structure where you can express yourself within limits and constraints, where you can do amazing things with I didn't realize at the time, but the self-discipline that is instilled into you as you go forward. So that was structure. Then when I went scaffolding, it was the same thing again. This is like you're doing industrial scaffolding. Sometimes you're up 500 foot in the air. Sometimes you're only doing 30 foot. But everything is about structure. So you've got this tool, you've got these tubes, these fittings, there's the job you've got to do. Get on with it. So everything's about structure and doing that. So when I came to safety, it was the same thing. How do you, and when I was doing my PhD, we were on 15 construction sites. We had different experimental designs. We did everything about BBS for 2 years before we ever told anybody what we were doing. So we could prove what we were doing before it was released to the public. So we did all of that. But again, it was structure. You have to structure. When you go to implement, so I've implemented some of these processes in the Middle East, 47,000 workers. How do you do that? 16 contractors. You've got to look for your anchors. What's your anchors? What's your constants? That comes from structure. So structure is a key. That's a real key learning thing for me. Whenever you approach anything, whether it's safety, productivity, quality, it doesn't matter. Structure. If you write an academic paper, you've got to have structure. So structure's the key thing. The other thing that I got from it, from scaffolding, is I learned to look, when I look at safety stuff, I look at everything with a tradesman eye. Is this going to save the guy's life? Is this going to prevent somebody going down? Is this, and I can remember Ted. I mean, I was helping pick up bits of Ted and so on, you know. So it's all about the structure, the tradesman's eye. I've got a psychologist training and how you measure things and so on and so forth. So I look at it a tradesman's eye first. I look at it as a safety professional second, because I'm also a qualified safety professional. And I look at it as a psychologist, industrial work psychologist third. So there's 3 different lenses that you're looking at everything with. Doing that helps you. It's like looking at a vast spreadsheet with lots and lots of data on it. You look directly at it, you see numbers, but your peripheral vision is picking up patterns as you speed through the data. So it's the same thing. When I look at all of safety and all of these things, I've got my anchors from the structure. I've got what the law says and what it should be in terms of safety. And then I'm looking at it from a work psychologist point of view. So you see things in the gaps between those different things that perhaps other people don't see. I don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I seem to write about them. It winds some people up and some people go, hey, well done. But I'm seeing things that's there in front of everybody, but you've got to train your mind to see it, yeah, if you understand. So that's really what it is. And the other thing I learned from scaffolding was some of the characters that you work with. My first gang ever that I worked with, every single one of them had done time for armed robbery. These were anti-authoritarian folk. Yeah, I mean, I thought I'd had a rough life. Well, geez, some of these boys had had a really rough life, and their way of the world and equalising stuff was to take a shotgun and try and knock over a security corps. So I'm working with these guys, and there's no mercy, absolutely no mercy. And I remember asking about safety stuff and sway bracing and why do you do it here and there? They tied me up on the scaffold and went off for breakfast. And I listened to the stuff today, the PC stuff today, and I'm going, nah, that wouldn't run. So I learned there's all these different types of people, and it meant that when I was going into all these different facilities in different countries around the globe, I worked in 67 countries, I think, so far, doing safety. And you meet all these characters, and it's amazing because I know how to work with them. I've worked with them. I'm not scared of people. So again, as a psychologist, you know, you look at things and I don't know, you're just a person. So I understand that people are a bit odd sometimes, and I don't care. It's just the way it is. Can I keep you alive? To be odd. That's really what it is. So yeah. So, and then the scaffolding, when I did do BBS, gave me street cred. I can remember being on a platform out in the North Sea, and all the boys are all hesitant, and they're like, well, you're not one of us, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm one of you as much as anyone else. And they said, well, you go on the monkey board, which is 110 foot up in the air, where you just got literally a small board like this, and this is where you put the drill string back in the rack. I said, sure. Yeah, but you're a consultant. You won't go up there. And I was up there with the guy who was putting what are you doing up here? I said, they wondered if I could get up here. Oh, they're giving you that, are they? I said, yeah. He says, well, you're the first one who's passed the test. All right. So, you go down and the guys do things, okay, you're genuine. So
Okay.
the street cred helped,
Next question is around, I'm just going to group it all under new view, but whatever terminology someone wants to use. But do you see any value in adopting any of these new view approaches or ideas?
Not at the moment, for one simple reason. There is no evidence to support. I've been asking for that evidence since 2020 when I even really got involved in it. Where's the evidence? Does it work? You show me it works and I'll back you 200%. But no one's ever come up with the evidence. And then here in the US, we have HOP, which is the equivalent of some of the things you guys are doing down under with safety differently, and we hear that no blame. Well, now we're seeing studies. I think you put me onto one study saying that blame actually increases learning. Then there was another study, Fred Sherratt's study, nice lady, and she showed that people, because of the no blame, they weren't talking to people who'd been involved in accidents. So now you're trying to do a root cause analysis with one hand tied behind your back. Then I come across another study recently, 5-year pre, where they did hold people accountable and did blame people, or held them culpable, I suppose is a better term than blame, because I don't like it. But anyway, they stopped holding people culpable, and 3 different agencies recorded massive spikes in incidents, violations, and everything on the ramp. Well, hello, you're on an aviation. You're on the ramp. You've got people in those aircraft who are innocent victims. If something goes wrong, you're going to kill your passengers. So this no culpability, no accountability, no blame, however you want to do it, it doesn't work. It doesn't run. And then when you say to these guys, hey, give us some information. What are you doing? Has it reduced injuries? And they can't provide it. And I don't know if it's because I wrote the paper originally questioning resilience engineering and safety differently and HOP. Nobody answers. Nobody wants to have a dialogue. And I'm like, okay, fine. That's up to you, But that tells me that they're scared. Why is everyone so scared to show that you've got evidence? It either works or it doesn't, So at the minute, there's not enough evidence. There's no evidence. And the moment you come up with it, and you can say, hey, look, we did this. We got a control study even. We took the department here and took a department there. We put it in there and we didn't do it there. And hey, presto, look, we've reduced injuries by X amount, whatever it is. Oh, great, brilliant. Okay, so how do we duplicate that? Can we repeat that? Can we repeat it anywhere else? Where does it work? Where does it not work? What's the enablers? That's what we all want to know. We're talking about saving lives or stopping people getting hurt at work. We're not talking about making chocolate bars. So different ball game. So for me, evidence. You produce the evidence and we'll evaluate it. If it's good, subscribe to it. If it's not, we won't.
I'm really keen to understand your view on what should the role of evidence be in practice, and particularly common practices that we do in safety that don't seem to have robust evidence. And I'll offer the risk matrix, for instance.
Now, this is really interesting. I was telling you earlier before we started this interview that I've been writing a book for the last 18 months on the title of the thing is Reducing Serious Injuries and Fatalities with Evidence-Based Safety. It's a book for pracademics, so it's trying to straddle the practitioner world and the academic world and bring them together. So I think I've found so far roughly 92 field studies that is giving us the evidence of injury reduction from doing safety things. So one of them, and I remember Drew Ray, was it EHS Congress in Germany last year or the year before, and threw a hand grenade in the audience. Risk assessments don't work. They're unscientific. Blow it up. Let's not do. And I'm like, good God, what are you doing? One, risk assessment is the foundation for everything to do with risk management and preventing harm. Well, it doesn't have scientific validity of the matrix. Well, whoopie-doo. Who cares? It's a tool to get you to think, to get you to try and identify what's missing and what's in a work area or something that's going to hurt people, and to have the dialogue with people who work in that area to come up with the risk control. It's a tool. It's not a means in and of itself. So anyway, for example, in this book, I go chasing all of these risk assessment studies. And guess what? Risk assessment reduces injury. So I would rather reduce injuries than worry about the degree of the validity of this tool, so long as it gets me to discovering what I need to put in as a control. So I was going to ask you when you asked me that question, and you've answered it with risk assessment. What else is there in this world from the new view perspective that does not work? Because one of the beefs I have, if I'm very honest, which I will be, one of the beefs I have with New View is all it does is criticise. It never puts anything in place to replace it. It just drags everything down. It's really annoying. So one of the chapters I've looked at is HOF, Human and Organisational Factors.
Yep.
Okay, so what is HOF? At the end of the day, really, what is HOF? It's a middleman. It's a warehouse. It has parent disciplines, which will be industrial psychology, organisational psychology, organisational behaviour, cognitive psychology. It'll have ergonomics in there. It'll have sociology. When you look at the sociology, there are no interventions. Sociologists do not have any interventions to make any improvements. They don't have anything. So there's no evidence that sociology makes an impact, apart from the fact it critiques all of everyone else's work. I looked at, was it Andrew Hopkins? And I've got time for Andrew Hopkins because he's pretty much in the ball court, but he's not always right. And he was taking behavioural safety, BBS, however you want to term it, to task because it wasn't resolving process safety incidents. And I'm like, are you mad? BBS is designed to prevent personal injury. I myself personally have been on ethylene crackers where we've merged the checklist, so we're looking at process safety and personal injury things together. You can do it. And then we get castigated, you're not including management and leadership. That's exactly what we've been doing. But the sociologists don't know what they're actually talking about or writing about in depth because they don't implement. Because they don't implement, they don't have the hands-on experience. So they make their judgments. Fair enough, everyone's entitled to an opinion. But at the end of the day, everything that comes out of sociology is an opinion. It might be an educated opinion, but it's an opinion. There's no quantitative data that goes with it to prove what they say.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's a whole raft of stuff, but HOF as a topic, take HOF, same thing. There is no evidence it works in the round at all. You've got ergonomic studies, which is mostly about back pain and musculoskeletal injury and that kind of stuff. They can't even get their act together in that field. The results are so inconsistent of the actual trials, field trials, it's unbelievable. And the effect sizes that you get from those are actually so minuscule, they're less than 0.01. It's like, why did you bother? So I'm not saying because it's evidence and it's academic, comes from academic, it must be good, because believe me, there is an awful lot of bad evidence and bad studies and poorly done.
Yep. So
for me, evidence. Is it good quality evidence? Is it a random control trial? Preferably. Is it, I mean, even the meta-analysis. I was one of the first in Britain to ever do meta-analysis on all of the data we got from doing my PhD on construction. But I look at them on safety climate. They're including studies that are contaminated. They're not even discerning between the good quality studies and the bad. They just throw it all in one bag mix. So as much as meta-analysis can be a brilliant tool, it can be a bad tool because people don't discern good quality research from bad quality.
That's a good point, though. But the safety culture research is being contaminated with safety climate too. So some of the most prominent research showing that safety culture improves outcomes explicitly include safety climate studies.
Right, it's junk. To me, it's junk science. And I wrote a paper in 2016. I've been invited to go to Granada for a safety culture symposium. Andrew Hopkins was there. I had an argument with him over, he said, there's no such thing as a culture of safety. You've only got organisational culture. And I said to him, but everyone said safety culture is a shorthand term for a culture of safety within an organisation. Okay? It's just a shorthand term, but it's a sub-feature of the organisational culture. Just because you measure organisational culture doesn't automatically give you the results for the...
I'm still here.
the safety culture. Oh, you are still there. Okay. So, so when I went through the evidence, so for example, safety maturity, a lot of people are complaining about safety maturity. Well, I think I discovered there was 70. I've been involved in developing safety culture maturity models for the past 5 years, okay, for government regulators and the like. So there's 70 different maturity models. Out of those, 3 or two safety maturity models have been validated. One of them's mine, which you can now get online. And if you look up CCH in California, safety culture report for MTZ refinery, you'll see it there. The other one we got, there was another one from Gambia or Ghana, I can't quite remember which country, which was another one that's validated against injury statistics. And then there's the one I published in Safety Science, which was the cultural web, which looked at organizational culture notionally. But then when we got all the data, and we did that deliberately so that people wouldn't respond in terms of safety culture or culture of safety, when we did all of that, then we got the links to the different accidents. So they've been validated against the incident histories of the entities who've been assessed. So I agree, the safety climate work leaves a lot to be desired. There's very few of those that have been valid. I think 12 out of 1,200 wasn't very, 9% or something, wasn't very high. So yeah, there's good research and there's bad research.
I had a follow-up question. You said, so if the matrix is a tool to think and it doesn't strictly need evidence in and of itself, how would you respond if someone said the new view philosophies are tools to think? Do they then need evidence?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question. Depends what the philosophies are, is what I'd say. I mean, I go back to, if I go to HOP, because I often get asked about HOP, why are you against HOP? I said, well, I'm not against HOP. I'm against the lack of evidence for HOP. But if I look at the mantras for HOP, so no blame, we've already established it doesn't hold, it's the wrong philosophy. So then we get this thing, context drives behavior. And again, I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. I don't disagree with that. J.B. Watson in 1913 said that when he said that behavior is determined by the environment. So he was the father of behaviorism. So that tells me HOP is based on behaviorism. Great, wonderful. I don't have a problem with it. I guess what I have a problem with is how are you configuring these things? Because we all know that BBS can work. We also know it can be made a complete mess of. And it comes down to how you configure it and what you do. And I even wrote a paper, I think, once, that the design of a BBS process impacts the results that you get. So I'm not averse to people thinking, talking things through. I've always been a great advocate of employee engagement. I've never had a problem with employee engagement, but I've always said it's structured employee engagement. What are you giving the lads to do? Tell them what you want them to do, or ask them what you want them to do, give them the tools to do it, and they'll do it for you. Brilliant. I've got no problem with that. That's what BBS was always about. It was about giving the working man a means of controlling or having some control over the safety management system. And if you look at the way all of the different behavior-based safety systems have been run out, whether you agree with the design or not, is immaterial. Once you give these systems and processes to the guys to run, they begin to take ownership of it all, safety and all the results and so on. And so it does what it's intended. I don't have a problem with that.